Hey guys, Soph here. I thought I'd do another one of these, like, let's sit down and talk about the spec videos. And we're gonna touch on Mistweaver this time. Now, I mained Mistweaver on live in Season 2 and Season 3 of BFA. This season, it is my least progged, least IO'd, least played spec, just because I'm not currently enjoying the playstyle that much. I like the idea of Wave the Crane, but something about the playstyle just doesn't quite feel as good as Holy Paladin or Disc Priest for me, and those are what I'm playing most of the time now. But in saying that, since I've started playing it on beta, I have been really enjoying the monk playstyle. Now, I'm not sure if it's the legendaries, the Conduits, or my Covenant ability, but something about the combination of these things feels really fun to play. I'm assuming it has a lot to do with your few spells that are new to Mistweaver, which I'll touch on shortly. But I have been enjoying Mistweaver a whole lot. As you can see, if you've seen any of my gameplay videos, I've been writing in the title, like, is this my new main? Because it is that fun. But right now, I'm going to talk about this Covenant ability, because as you can see, I'm swirling blue, which means I've popped my Kyrian Covenant ability. Now, what that does is releases a wave of AoE at the start of my Essence Font cast and at the end of my Essence Font cast. But also while that is going on, there is a buff to my mastery. So my mastery is increased by 15% for 30 seconds, which is kind of like a really nice healing CD to have, just so it can buff your mastery. So like if you're like let's say you have your renewing mist out and you're spamming Vivify, your mastery and your healing is just that much more effective. So I've been using it in terms of just using it as a CD to help me, because some of these bosses are a little bit overtuned and there's quite a lot of damage going out. Unfortunately, in this clip, I'm not showcasing it off very well, but it does feel like quite a nice heal. Even though it's with Essence Font and you don't tend to use Essence Font a lot of the time, it feels kind of it kind of buffs your Essence Font and makes you want to use it, and like, I don't know, the wave of healing that it releases at the start and the end of the cast kind of makes it worthwhile. I haven't had enough time to test all the other Covenant abilities for Mistweaver yet, so this might not be something that you would pick in the long run, because I'm not actually sure, but I have just been, I don't know, fiddling around with it, seeing how it feels. And I've been pretty impressed with it in terms of throughput wise. Unfortunately, you can't really see how powerful it is in this clip, but in terms of making the playstyle feel more fun, I've definitely been enjoying it so far. I'll try and skip to the boss and see if we can see if I've I don't know, I use it in a more efficient manner. But this spec right now, its throughput feels really powerful. Now, you have an extra big healing CD like Revival. You have talents that mean that your Revival's on a reduced CD, or your like Yulon is on a reduced CD, or its healing is more effective. So those Conduit abilities help buff that even more. But including this Kyrian Covenant ability, I feel like I have 3 CDs. I have my Revival, I have my Yulon, and I have my Kyrian Covenant ability. Okay, so I've popped it here. So you're going to watch, whenever I'm casting Essence Font, there's going to be a healing wave going out. Now my mastery is also buffed, so you can see when I'm casting Vivify that it is just that much more effective than it is without. So hopefully I'm going to cast Essence Font here. You're going to see the explosion went off, and it went off again. Now, it's hard to see the difference, but it is just a nice little buff, I guess, to your mastery and your Essence Font. Now, there is probably a better Covenant ability, I do have to admit, but I have been enjoying this so far, and I'm going to continue to test it in some of these higher keys shortly. But what I will do is talk about Conduits now. I wanted to kind of showcase this spec off because it's quite fun. It's also, in my eyes, quite easy to pick up. Like, if you're somewhat new to healing, it's not particularly difficult. It's got quite a lot of like different utility. Like, Ring of Peace is quite good, Leg Sweep is good. You bring the debuff. It's like to buff everyone's damage. Well, not everyone's damage, but you get what I'm saying. So that quite possibly is enough to kind of push it over, like maybe Resto Shaman or Priest. But again, it doesn't have a B-res. It's not a druid. It has a few issues with mana, in my opinion. I mean, Monk has always been kind of hungry on mana. But it isn't quite as bad as BFA, I don't think. But again, it's still there. It's not going to go away. Druid is fantastic on mana. You don't really have to drink in dungeons, but unfortunately with Monk, you don't have to drink as much as you would expect, but it is still significantly more than if you were to play a Druid, per se. So we'll talk a little bit about the covenants for the conduits for Druid, sorry. So I'm running mostly potency conduits, just because I tend to enjoy those more than the others. But yeah, so we're running here potency conduit. Gust of Mist has a 30% chance to do 25% more healing. I don't know if that's particularly good. Like maybe this one would be better. So this one I don't really talk about that much because I'm not sure. I'm just testing out how my Gust of Mist is feeling. But as of right now, considering I have significantly low mastery, like I'm running 38%, which in comparison to live is somewhat low. I'm not sure how that stacks in terms of beta mastery, like where you would want to be, you know, when Shadowlands goes live. But it does a fair amount of healing. Also, this right here, Weapons of Order, is my mastery increase in my Essence font, which does a decent amount of healing along with my Essence font here. Like, I'm not saying it's no Vivify, obviously, but it is decent healing, both of these. So I guess this one is okay to test out for now. We are running this Endurance Conduit. When casting Vivify on yourself, its heal is increased by 10%, and it has a chance to refund its cost. This kind of reminds me of the Resto Shaman Healing Surge talent, which means when you cast Healing Surge on yourself, it's 15% more effective. So I kind of like that because, like, when I'm healing myself, I don't want to be spam healing. So if my heals on myself are more effective, then that means I have to worry about myself less, or like put less healing into myself. Now here I'm running this one here. Abilities that activate Gust of Mist reduce the CD on Imbogulon by 0.5 seconds, and his healing is increased by 10%. I'm not sure if that is particularly good. I was testing out this one here. Rising Sun Kick reduces the remaining CD of Revival by 1 second, and it heals targets for 10% of its heal over 10 seconds. Again, that one might be slightly better, which I've been messing around with a little bit. But this one here, I don't know. Again, none of these conduits are particularly impactful to your gameplay. I hate to say it. But again, we'll have to see kind of where we end up. I don't really know. But why is it showing that my tree is broken? Oh, there we go. Okay, sorry. I just didn't even realize. But yeah, so I'm also running Rising Sun Kick, reduces the remaining CD of Revival by 1 second, and Revival heals targets for 10% of Revival's heal over 10 seconds. These two here help my big CDs out a little bit, which I'm not sure if is the best play for Mythic Plus. For Raid, probably, but for Mythic Plus, it's kind of like, well, your Revival and your Yulon are pretty important, but when picking conduits, I prefer to pick things that impact, like, me as a healer pack by pack, instead of, like, every 3 minutes. And the last one in that row is just one that buffs my mastery, which, again, is the same as all the others, which buffs my Covenant ability. Now, I'm not sure if that, again, if Kyrian is a good Covenant ability to go, or whether you might want to test something else out, so you kind of have to take that with a grain of salt. that is just me saying I'm enjoying it so far. We'll see if, you know, maybe Vinther or Necro or Nightfey is better. I would love to test out Nightfey. That is probably my next up, so then I can make another video like this where I say, oh, Nightfey versus Kyrian. But in terms of talents, pretty much the exact same thing that I'm running on live. Actually, it is the exact same thing I'm running on live right now. Nothing's really changed. I do like the Rising Mist, healing all allies with a Renewing Mist, Enveloping Mist, or Essence Font, because a lot of the time with my Covenant ability, I'm casting Essence Font quite a lot. So this helps do an extra healing, with the Mastery increase also, that affects that. And also just buffing the healing, buffing the length of my Essence Font. Hot. God, sorry, that's forever to try and get out. But we can look here at a few of the other conduits. So we've got Fortifying Brew, grants you a shield equal to 5% of your health. Again, for endurance, I would rather run something that busts the healing on myself than something that busts one of my defensives. That's every 2 minutes. We've got Expel Harms, healing is increased. Something about Leg Sweep. When casting Vivify, that's the one that I have. Paralysis, Blackout Kick. This one would be fun to test out. Blackout Kick has a 5% chance to grant a charge of roll. I would really like to test that out because that sounds kind of fun. It seems a bit useless in my opinion, but it does sound fun. Transcendence, and then these two are the ones that I'm running right now. Actually, these three. The Life Cocoon's healing increase over time by additional 15% would be nice, just because Life Cocoon still breaks somewhat easily right now, so then once it breaks, your healing on them is still more effective for 10 seconds. That could be nice to test out, instead of maybe one of my CDs, one of the conduits that bust my 3-minute CDs. Again, I'd have to test that out and compare it for you, but the thing that I feel like I lack is still my damage, unfortunately. Like, let's look. This boss had a little bit more downtime where I could do damage. Still didn't feel like super impactful, I have to admit. My damage is probably the lowest of all of the specs right now. I haven't tested Holy Priest, so it might be better than Holy Priest. But it does just feel kind of lackluster, I do have to admit. There isn't really anything right now that's buffing your damage, and that's kind of what I think Mistweaver needs. Because like Resto Shaman, Disc Priest, Druid, Holy Paladin is okay, but the three that I mentioned just do significantly more single target than Mistweaver does at all. But we'll talk a little bit about legendaries. Now, people have been asking me to test this legendary. Your Tiger Palm, Blackout Kick, and Rising Sun Kick heal for 120% of the damage done. I was testing that when it was 50%, and that was god-awful. It had next to no impact, so that was a very swift change. Because that literally did next to no healing whatsoever, and I was like, this is garbage, and instantly switched that one out. But these dungeons that I've uploaded to YouTube, I've actually been running this one here. Renewing Mist applies Extend Life to the initial target, instantly healing them for 50 and increasing all healing done to them by 15% for 12 seconds. When you heal with Enveloping Mist or Vivify, 50% of the heal is also applied to targets with your Extend Life effect. Again, this seems to have pretty high numbers. Like right here on one of the boss fights, it's my 6th heal. Let's have a look. It's the same as the priest one, right? Like, it has quite decent numbers. This one, not so much. That one was not so impactful. But again, it does quite a lot of healing for, again, no skill. Like, I hate to say no skill, but it's not a legendary you kind of have to keep in mind the whole time. Because a lot of the time, you're always just going to be putting your Renewing Mist out on people, right? So it's just constantly applying that buff and then just increasing your healing done to that person for 12 seconds. So, in my eyes, this is a really nice legendary in terms of healing. I have been really enjoying playing this one here because it's kind of like Way of the Crane in some terms. The thing that sucks the most though is your damage abilities just don't do much damage, and so that's why they had to buff it so much, because your damage abilities are kind of bad. I'm still preferring this one right now, but again, I haven't had enough time to test this one because I've been trying to get all these guides up for the different specs. So I'll come back to this one and I can give you a solid answer about which one I think is better in like a week's time. Because I'd also like to test the other Covenant abilities as well for Monk. But as of right now, its throughput feels as good as Druid in my opinion. Like its AoE feels really good. But my issue with it being it still costs a lot of mana to actually maintain the same kind of HPS that a Druid is. Like on these bosses, you're gonna go incredibly quickly just because you're a monk. And that's kind of the way that it has always been. So I still think Druid is better just because it's like mana usage is much, like its mana costs are much lower for the same kind of like healing numbers. But in saying that, the spec feels very forgiving. Like some of these dungeons I played, I have no clue how bosses work, how different mechanics work, like how hard stuff hits, and it just really pumps. Like if your group is taking random damage unexpectedly, you're able to top them up fairly quickly, and that is something that I do really value in a healing spec, because it sucks when everyone's taking so much damage and you just feel like you're getting behind. Monk feels like I'm putting out my renewing mists, I've got my soothing mist channeling from my statue. If I really need, there's revival, there's my Kyrian Covenant ability, there's Yulon. But even then, without your big healing CDs, you're still pumping as a healer. Again, I don't think it's on Druid level just because of its mana and because its damage is quite sad, to say the least. But the main question we ask is the spec fun? Yes, the spec is incredibly fun. It is my main pick for dungeons that I haven't done before, just because I know that I'm not going to have to worry about whether I'm going to do enough healing. And that is something that I really like, because on beta, some of these bosses are overtuned, or you don't see like abilities happening, or you're standing and stuff. And it's not a spec that I'm like, oh god, if we're going to take a lot of damage, I'm going to get behind, and then it's going to be a nightmare. This spec, you just keep trucking along, you keep pumping. Again, you do have to drink a lot, and on the beta right now, the mana food is like abysmal, so it does take quite a long time to regen your mana. But if you're looking for a spec right now, like if it stays the way that it is pretty easy to pick up. It is incredibly fun. You don't have to worry about throughput issues. The only thing you're really worrying about is your mana and how bad your damage is. But again, I think they will change the damage, because I think they were aware of how bad it was, and that's why they buffed this legendary, because they realized, well, 50% of damage done isn't much because your damage is already so low. But yeah, that's kind of all I have to say. So, if you guys have any opinions on what covenants are better for Monk, I'd love to know where to go next. Because again, I haven't had a whole lot of time to test stuff. But I think I'm going to go Night Phase, so I can let you guys know what I'm thinking in terms of covenants probably in about a week's time. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day or night. Bye!